don't talk about. You know, money is the last taboo, right? We'd rather talk about how many people we've slept with or what we did Saturday night rather than the details of how much debt we have or the incomes that we make. You know, money is this taboo. So, you know, I'm super drawn to the mission, and Jason has been a wonderful support of mine, so I'm super happy to be here. And, you know, I'm drawn to the financial wellness mission because so many of us have been in experiences where we're not financially well. You know, we're not financially healthy, right? By a show of hands, how many of you have ever stressed about money? By a show of hands, have you ever felt overwhelmed by debt? By a show of hands, have you ever worried that your money might not last to the end of the month? By a show of hands, have you ever felt like if I just made more money, things would be easier? As you can see, many of us have similar experiences of feeling like money is stressful, debt is all-consuming. You know, there's this anxiety related to money. And I should know because several years ago, I found myself in a position full of debt, full of stress, full of anxiety. I had borrowed $81,000 in student loan debt for my 2 degrees, and I had graduated from NYU in May 2011. And after 5 years of making minimum payments, I graduated, and I was so full of hope and ready to join the workforce, and I knew I had to get on top of my student loans. And so I signed up for budgeting software at mint.com. I synced all my loans, I synced my income, and I saw everything in black and white. I owed $68,000 still. And this was after making 5 years of payments, and I didn't really know how much I owed at the time. And that number just took the wind out of my sails. I felt like someone had punched me. I had $68,000 in student loan debt. My income was that of a student, and I was struggling to find a job. And so what did I do? A few hours later, I deleted the mint.com account. I was like, that's too much to deal with right now. Delete. I don't need financial wellness that bad. And so I went on with my life and pretended that debt wasn't there. And I just ignored it. I was in my grace period. I didn't have to make payments, so I just let it be. 6 months later, my grace period was coming to a close, and I was in New York. It was becoming, you know, right around the holidays, and I still hadn't secured a full-time job. And I realized I could not afford my student loans and my rent in New York without a full-time job. There was just no way. And so I made the difficult decision to move to Portland, Oregon. And my partner was there. We were doing long distance at the time. And so while it was a good move for me personally, it wasn't a move that I really wanted to make at that point. I wanted to stay in New York. I wanted to live this fabulous life, you know, have this arts career, and, you know, this whole dream that I had convinced myself that I would have with this New York degree suddenly just disappeared. And I left New York with my tail between my legs, and I moved to Portland. And I was really unhappy, and I said, I'm going to start fresh in Portland. And I struggled even more in Portland. I couldn't find a full-time job. I took on work for $10 to $12 an hour as a temp job, and at the recommendation of a friend, I went on food stamps. I was making $800 a month, and my student loan payments were about $1,000 a month, and I didn't want to go on an income-based repayment plan, and I was trying to get as much help as I could, and I fell into a deep depression. My debt felt like it was consuming me. You know, I did everything that I thought I was supposed to. You know, millennials get a lot of flack about being entitled and selfish, and millennials are all these things, right? But we were told our whole lives, you can do whatever you want if you just work for it, right? Wasn't that our whole spiel, the whole generation, right? You can do whatever you want. So I went to a good school, I worked hard, I got good grades, and then I found myself with a ton of student loan debt, making $10 to $12 an hour, and on food stamps. This was not the life I had imagined post-NYU. And so, after being depressed for a couple of years and feeling like I was stuck, I came to the realization that I could not live this way anymore. You know, there comes a point in your financial journey, especially if you're in debt, that you just have to say, this is enough. I'm going to break up with you, debt. Dear debt, it is over. And so I started my blog January 3rd, 2013, and I declared that I was going to be debt-free in 4 years. And at that time, I was making $12 an hour, and there was absolutely no way that it was going to be possible given my current income. But I wrote to the whole internet. I said, I'm going to be debt-free in 4 years. My one reader, my mom at the time. And, you know, I took that first step to change my mindset. And that was the first time I had actually told myself I was going to get out of debt, right? For so long before that, I had so many excuses. I'll just be in student loan debt forever. Everyone has student loan debt. Student loans are the good debt, right? I just made all of these excuses on why I was going to be in debt forever. And then it got to the point where it was consuming my life. It was holding me back from my dreams. It was limiting my choices. It affected where I worked, it affected where I lived, it affected everything. And I realized there was no way that I was going to live a happy, fulfilled life until I was debt-free. So I started cutting back my expenses. I didn't have a car, a gym membership, cable, I didn't go shopping, you know, cut my expenses back to the bone. I started side hustling. I found gigs on Craigslist, on TaskRabbit. I worked as an event planner, as an event assistant, as a pet sitter, as a brand ambassador. I sold water bottles at a rave overnight once. I did pretty much anything people would pay me for that was legal. And I opened myself up to all of these opportunities. And an amazing thing happened along the way. I was so focused on finding this traditional opportunity, this full-time job that never came, or actually it did come later, but it was not a very good opportunity. And you know, I found all of these side hustles and I started blogging and I created this own opportunity for myself, right? And then sure enough, in 3 years, I was able to pay off all of my debt. I paid off the last of my debt December 10th, 2015, and it was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. And it was crazy because I worked 7 days a week for probably 4.5 years. I made a lot of sacrifices. It was very trying, but it was completely worth it because now I have the rest of my life to have my money, and my money is mine. And there's no greater feeling in the world when you can use your money to live the life that you want and not be paying for your past. You want to pay for your future, right? So if you are currently in debt, you may think, what can I do? Number one, look at ways you can cut back your expenses. Right? See if look at your expenses, wants, and needs. They are different. Sometimes there's some gray area between the wants and needs, but think hard about it. Secondly, find how you can earn more money. I think, you know, we all said, most of us in here said, you would feel better if you earned more. And when I was making $10 to $12 an hour, I definitely knew I needed to earn more money to pay back my debt. And so I found opportunities. You know, in the sharing economy, there's so many ways to make money on Postmates, Instacart, TaskRabbit, Craigslist, you know, so many different ways. And you can use your skills to help others and make money. And most important, you have to believe that you can get out of debt. You know, we come up here and talk about financial advice, but I'll tell you a secret. Most personal finance comes down to the same thing. Spend less, earn more, right? Sounds super simple, but it can be one of the hardest things in the world to do. And the reason is because we have all of these emotions related to money. We have, you know, our cultural upbringing, everything that affects how we spend money and how we see money. So you have to really shift your money mindset and say, I can and I will get out of debt, and there's no other choice. And really believing that you can and believing that you will. And once you make that mental shift, you might start seeing all of these other changes around you. You know, like once I believed that I can get out of debt, I started getting more side hustles, I started getting more work. I created my blog, which led to freelance writing. So many different things started opening up to me once I believed that I was going to get out of debt, once I made it my only choice. So I just wanted to share that with you, and I wanted to let you know, if you are currently in debt, that you are not alone and that you can get out of it. And if you have any other questions, please feel free to ask me at the end. Thank you.